Greetings YouTube, welcome back to Jurassic World Evolution, and we're going to take a break from the missions in the game today in order to go over dinosaur needs, and in particular a few spreadsheets or a few diagrams for you which I think are going to be super helpful. So as you know, all of the species in this game have a certain bunch of needs that you need to satisfy in order to keep your dinosaurs happy, and if you don't satisfy them then you start to get chaos, they start breaking out of fences, it's not pretty. Well, the only problem that I found is that the actual needs for each dinosaur can only be checked once you've gone ahead and incubated a member of that particular species. And by the time you've met the needs of that species by hatching more dinosaurs, more of the same, more of a different kind, etc., expanding your fences in order to create a bigger paddock or whatever the case may be, comfort levels can drop and you can have just all kinds of issues on your hands. Well, thanks to the internet, that is no longer a problem. Right, so these tables are brought to us by Hiplobonoxa. Apologies, probably got the name pronounced incorrectly there over at Reddit, but I'll go ahead and minimise the game here and show you the first one. So this is a really useful table, and I can see the amount of work and effort that's been put into this, not only in bringing all of the correct information through, but just presenting it to us in a very attractive way, actually. So obviously down the left hand side we've got all of the names of the different dinosaur species, but then as well we've got all of the stats that are appropriate to each of those species, including their attack and defense, their lifespan, resilience, and their rating. The rating being very important because obviously we need a high dinosaur rating if we're going towards the 5-star island ratings, which we are going to require if we want to complete the game, get all the trophies, etc, etc. And if we scroll across here, we can see the price for each of these species under their standard genome, so when we've not, altered the genes at all there. Obviously, as you alter genes, the price is going to go up somewhat substantially, especially with some of the more expensive dinosaurs. Then we have the gene modifications. This is just going through the different modifications that you can make on each particular species. Don't worry if that's too complicated, you can compare that in-game just to see how each of these lines up. But some of the more important stuff is what we've got coming up anyway. So diet, pretty self-explanatory, whether these guys are carnivores or herbivores, but also how, big they are, because basically this is an important category to know, whether it's a large carnivore, for example, or an armoured herbivore, because these different categories are able to interact with each other in the same enclosure. Okay, so a large carnivore, for example, is going to guzzle up a small herbivore. You're not going to want to put those together. So by knowing the different categories, you can actually plan ahead with what dinosaurs you put in which enclosure. A large herbivore, for example, is going to go well with a Spinosaurus. So say a Brachiosaurus, for example, with a Spinosaurus. You can just use this category list here to determine which are going to go well where. And then moving on, we've got the length. Okay, so that's just the size of the dinosaur, so we know how it's being categorised. And now we get to the really important stats as well. So we've got comfort, grassland, forest, population, and social. And now, for example, this first dinosaur, which is the Allosaurus, I've not actually incubated one of these in my parks as of yet, but we can see it's got a really hard, is that really high or really low comfort threshold? Either way, it's going to get uncomfortable very quickly, with the comfort threshold minimum being 80% there. So we are going to want to make sure that the Allosaurus' needs are met before we go ahead and incubate these guys, or we're going to find ourselves in a whole lot of bother. So one of the things we can see immediately is the fact that they are going to need quite a bit of space, with the grassland and forest coming in at about 26,000, 26,500 metres squared. But we'll talk about that when it comes to the next table I'm going to show you. What's perhaps most important here is the fact that we're told specifically the population and social numbers for each of these species. And if this looks confusing, don't worry, it's not once you understand it. So the population is how many dinosaurs in total this particular species is comfortable with in the same enclosure. So for example, for this particular Allosaurus species, 16 is the amount. And don't worry about the fact that it says 0 there. That just means that anywhere between 0 and 16 is going to keep the Allosaurus happy in terms of overall population. But if you put a 17th dinosaur in the enclosure with the Allosaurus, then you're going to find yourself, in trouble, because the comfort of this guy is going to start dropping. But then you've got the social tab. And this is 0 to 1, which is basically just 1, okay? Because obviously if you've got 0 of that species, then you don't need to be worrying about any of this stuff. But what this is telling you how much of the same species you can have with this dinosaur. Since this one has a social of 1, you can only have 1 Allosaurus maximum in an enclosure, or the comfort level is going to drop. So with other dinosaurs that it will get on with, you can have up to 16 in total, but only 1 of this particular species can be in the enclosure. Now this second table is also really useful then, because what it's going to do is very quickly give us a good idea of how much size, how much space each dinosaur is going to want, each species of dinosaur that is, and also how we're going to want to define that space by grassland and forest. Two very important components that are going to come into play a little bit later on in the game for those who just starting with some of the species that you're going to hunt fossils down for. For example, the Brachiosaurus over here, you saw that at the start of this video, requires a big open space, 42,000 square meters to be precise, with about 50% grassland and 50% forest. So obviously it's a lot easier knowing this before you go in to actually incubating a specific dinosaur, because you can actually have the space ready for them and you won't have to be making adjustments while their comfort levels are dropping later on. And you can just go through this table for each of the different species and see how this all compares. For example, the Sauropelta is going to require just 300 meters square of forest, but still about 10,000 or just under 10,000 meters square of grassland. And this is also going to help you when you're wanting to see which species are going to work well together, because of the various requirements that are going to have to overlap with one another. As you can see then guys, really helpful stats. For example, the Stegosaurus here has a social tab of 5 to 9, which is really quite high actually. If you don't have at least 5 Stegosaurus in the same pen, their comfort levels are going to be dropping dramatically. And knowing that before you actually start incubating is a big help. So once again, massive thank you over to Hiplobonoxa, and I will leave the links to both of those tables in the description of this video. So please do go and check those out. And also feel free to leave a thank you message on those Reddit posts as well. Obviously a lot of time and effort has gone into making those tables for us, and I will certainly be putting them to use myself. I'm sure many of you guys will as well as you go through with the game. Well, I've actually got not a whole lot left to do now in order to maximise you know, what it is that I've been doing with the game here. I've got this final park to finish off. I've got 2 missions to do. I've already done the entertainment mission, and I will be making videos on those other 2 missions, the science and security mission, as I go ahead and complete them. So please do check back for those if you want any tips. But thanks a lot for joining me today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed watching. If you have, don't forget to leave a like on this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more JWE content in the near future. But thanks again, guys. Take care. I'll see you soon.